are a white male.
True.
Stop it. You are a white male. Your skin is light enough. Stop it.
You're a white woman with blonde hair.
Yeah?
That's racist. You are racist.
You're a white male. You're a white man.
Right, well, nobody has to save you because you're a fucking white man who gets to do whatever he wants to in this space, right? You have a fucking culture.
I don't?
No, you don't.
Oh.
We're fucking white. We don't have a goddamn fucking culture.
Are you?
I sit here as a privileged white woman. I cannot imagine, but I appreciate you educating us.
Well, because we're white, we have had privilege, even the poorest of us.
When you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be hassled when you walk down the street or you get dragged out of a car.
What do you say to the people who dragged a poor white guy out of a car and beat him?
Oh my goodness, poor white people, please, oh my, stop it, Carl.
Those white guys, those middle-aged, boring, nerdy-looking white guys.
I don't even know what diversity means, but whatever. Thank you.
It means non-white men.
What do you mean we're lucky to be white?
It's not luck, it's privilege.
We're privileged, and that's unfair.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
So we have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them. There is no travel ban on them. There is no ban on, they had the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that?
All right, hold up. Is it recording? Yep. All right. Why don't we murder more white people? Take one.
I think we don't murder more white people because it's very dangerous to do so.
I'm angry at white people most of the time. Most of the time.
Like white power is Trump Tower. Like these things are put against each other, but when we say we want to kill whitey, we don't really mean we want to kill whitey, we do. But when we say we want to kill whitey, it's like it's a capitalist, not today.
If white people want to see an improvement for people of color, they need to understand that racism is not learned, it's inherited, and either consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. The uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth.
I saw a thing in that said a lot of men, white men, were committing suicide. And I almost thought, yeah, great. And then I thought about it a little more, and I thought, well, maybe you shouldn't say that in public.
White Americans will soon be a minority, and that's great.
Whites will not be the majority. I mean, it's an exciting transformation of the country. It's an exciting evolution and progress of our country in many different ways. Clearly, there's, among white supremacists, white nationalists, that is viewed as a horrific event.
It's a kind of utopia, just the fact that the whole world will mix up with each other, that in, 70, 80 years, there will be no white people anymore, and only cappuccino-colored people.
But that's the only way. This is the only solution. It's my way of thinking.
Mix up.
It's our only hope, is our way out of this.
Yes.
It's going to take some time.
That we're witnessing the end of white America as we know it. The question is, how long and how expensive will the funeral be?
It means recognizing that there is one common enemy, the white man. We need to address the fact that, all of these groups of people, the issues they face, it all comes from the same people, white men. So we need to get rid of them.
What I did wrong in 2016 is I overestimated white people.
And white people have been probably woefully late to this conversation.
But I'm not willing to let white voters off the hook.
The sweeping vistas stir the soul. Wildlife and waterfalls awaken a sense of wonder. The American wilderness, a playground for old and for young, and overwhelmingly white. The National Park Service says the persistent whiteness of its 419 parks is an existential crisis.
It is not the job of black people and ethnic minorities to educate white people on racism that is perpetuated by white people.
Right.
White folks need to go educate themselves on the racism they perpetuate. White privilege whitewashes racist and inflammatory language as unconscious bias. It perpetuates the bigotry of intolerant white people as ignorant.
It's very hard to talk about the issue of race. White people particularly don't know how to do it.
Well, I call it white mansplaining.
This idea that white people are objective on racism, which is outrageous. We are the least objective.
The most dangerous kind of white privilege is to think that we can sit this justice struggle out.
In London, the white British population has decreased by 600,000, while the minority population has increased by 1.2 million. So, yes, lads, we're winning.
Do you believe that white folks actually care about racial injustice?
It doesn't appear that we do. I mean, the status quo of our society is racism, and it's comfortable for white people.
Doesn't it seem like some white men are really angry lately? Which is why you're getting pushback from the men in your life for just existing. But it's not you. It's white men. They're a little fragile right now.
There are still generations of people, older people, who were born and bred and marinated in it, in that prejudice and racism, and they just have to die.
Quel est l'objectif? Ça va faire parler. Et l'objectif, c'est relever le défi du métissage. Défi du métissage que nous adresse le XXIe siècle. Ce n'est pas un choix. C'est une obligation, c'est un impératif. On ne peut pas faire autrement. Si ce volontarisme républicain ne fonctionnait pas, il faudra alors que la République passe à des méthodes plus contraignantes encore.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression, sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. If you abolish slavery, you abolish slaveholders. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
Your views are fairly well received in academia.
Yes, they're legitimate, not to say that everyone agrees.
It is incumbent upon people who hold the power in this society to help to do that, to do the heavy lifting. And guess who that is? Who is that, Chris?
White people. A lot of the real craziness comes, if you like, from rural white Americans who feel that they're losing their country, they're losing ownership of the country. And they're right. I mean, we are becoming more diverse, more multicultural, and they are, in the end, they are not the future. In the end, the power they still have will go away.
The reason why I helped write the standards and the reason why I am here today is that as a white male in society, I'm given a lot of privilege that I didn't earn.
It's critical for white people, for people in general, to stop denying their racist ideas.
It's sinful. It is a sinful, violent identity construct and culture. Because first of all, whiteness emerges as a construct always in opposition to that which is not white. That's the way it emerges. You cannot at once be white and Christian. And that means you have to name the ways, you have to call out the demon. You have to name the ways in which you are white. So you have to name the demons.
What am I trying to do in my classrooms? I'm trying to create dangerous spaces within my classrooms. Dangerous spaces. And what does this mean? What we need are critical dangerous spaces where vulnerability, so I'm thinking these are dangerous spaces, where vulnerability and anxiety can be nurtured in white students who find themselves faced with critical questions about race that mark their bodies as problem bodies. How do you mark white bodies as problem bodies and get away with that? Creating moments of trauma are important. Again, etymologically, which means to wound, within the context of classrooms. How do you create trauma? We need forms of trauma that unsettle various meta-narratives that ground and underwrite white privilege and white so-called superiority. This is necessary for white students in order to begin to disarticulate, again, various mythopoetic constructions of whiteness that have reinforced their naturalized place of dominance in the world.